remember that there was a community garden out towards the western end of Ivy, around an area called the Red Barn. And I didn't grow anything, but I liked walking there. I thought it was beautiful, and it was so nice that there was a garden space. I didn't have any knowledge that I could participate or plant something or eat any of the food, but I enjoyed them, sort of just as an observer.
The main value that we try and harbor on at Greenhouse and Garden Project is community. So providing a space for people of all walks of life within Ivy and Santa Barbara to come together and participate in something like gardening, which allows people to get their hands dirty and helps orient people's priorities towards more community-based activities.
With gardening, I think historically gardening has not been a very diverse area. We have seen like a lot of like the mainstream announcements and promotions of gardens is like little white old woman. It's like the typical like what people think of as gardener, right? And so we're trying to break through that, by bringing in more culturally diverse programming, doing partnerships. Like one of our gardens has a section of beds set aside for the Black Women's Health Collaborative. We really try to be diverse in terms of what we plant. So we're planting things that call to lots of different cultures. Never seen a single program that's going to work for everybody. We've got the CalFresh program, which is great. We don't have the scale that CalFresh or the food pantries have. But we do have the diversity of food options, and we do have the connection to the land, and we do have the ability to be fresh and actually grown that day,
As we've seen, community gardens are an excellent resource for the Isla Vista community. So why don't more people use community gardens? To understand why, we wanted to ask someone not involved in community gardens. Where do you normally get your produce from? How familiar are you with community gardens in Isla Vista? What do you view as barriers to your participation, and what would it take for you to be involved? I spoke with Jay, a 20-year-old female environmental studies major in her third year at UCSB. She did not wish to be recorded or videotaped in any way, and her name has been edited at her request to respect her privacy. Jay usually sources produce and other groceries from Trader Joe's or Ralph's bi-weekly, and goes to the AS Food Bank 1 to 2 times a week for small stuff. While she's aware of community gardens and has visited the Methodist Church Community Garden, she's never used it as a food resource herself. Jay cites her main barriers to participation as distance and time, stressing the time it would take out of her normal routine as a working college student to travel to a garden plot and maintain it. She also cited her lack of gardening knowledge as a reason for not participating. Jay says her participation would require an investment of time and a lot of learning, but did not cite any barriers related to how community gardens are structured or function in Isla Vista.
Something we've touched a lot on is how there's a massive exploitation of labor currently going on that is involved with the fruits and vegetables that we see in the grocery store. We're talking about long hours for these farm workers, isolation, and general prison conditions. And something that we've talked about is self-gardening and community gardening as an alternative to these kind of laborious practices. I'm curious what type of labor is going into your garden.
It doesn't even take hours out of your day. You might have one startup day that takes a couple of hours, but then it's just mainly just maintaining, gardening, as far as watering, weeding. So I wouldn't say it takes too much time except for planning, not really hard manual labor. If anything, carrying mulch at worst. So 20 pounds.
Is there anything that's preventing you from participating in community gardens?
Time, trying to get out there. I mean, between, work, school, all the above, it just becomes okay, well, trying to find a time to go out and go to a community garden can be, sometimes not so realistic.
It is clear that time stands out as the biggest barrier to community gardens in Isla Vista. Community gardens in Ivy should continue efforts to increase awareness, particularly stressing that no experience is needed. Solving the issue of time, especially for working students, can only happen if costs of living go down so students have more free time to garden instead of working to afford living. For example, imagine if you didn't need to work multiple jobs or try to work the max amount of hours just to afford this month's housing and food. Imagine if even an hour of that time not spent picking up an extra shift could go towards maintaining a garden plot that helps offset your living costs. It is clear that the larger implications of community gardens in our food futures will be one approach to a multi-level problem, as they are a solution that works for some but not for others. Lastly, long-term changes to our food system will of course require a deeper ideological shift in the way we think about economy and livelihoods, but we are hopeful that community gardens will continue to offer sustainable food choices to our communities in the meantime.
I think it would definitely benefit communities as a whole to have more community gardens in the future, because it does foster that idea of community